afternoon, everybody. It's your man with the plan, Shane Man 20. Thought that was echoing through the entire valley, and it's not. It's two trucks. Good afternoon, everybody. It's your man with the plan, Shane Man 20. I have a couple of updates for you guys, and I know you're getting kind of fed up with hearing nothing but updates. I just want to get one thing out of the way. I do sincerely apologize that it's taking forever to get these things, the parts and all this stuff together, because I would rather do that kind of stuff and do reviews for you guys and tell you how I think they'll work for your truck if you have one, or if you're just a big fan of the channel and want to see the progress on the truck. I would rather much do those things than just kind of sit here and talk. It kind of sucks to have to do that, but right now we just have a lot of things going on my end. But there is one bit of good news that comes out of this. Right now I'm working with a particular company to try and see where we can get on as far as some even ground for that, and I don't want to release too much right now because nothing's really fully formed yet, so I can't really I don't want to give you guys any half-baked information. So right now there is some things in the works, but at the worst case I'm looking forward to September as far as restarting doing some things with the truck. As I said, there is one other package that I'm expecting, but right now that current product is on back order, so really can't do much until it gets here. Well, it's not really that we can't do much, it's that really can't move forward with what I want to do until all the other stuff gets here on top of it. In which case, if you guys are wondering, the truck is still right there. So coming over here to the Jeep, wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the progress that we made on the Jeep over the weekend. Now, as you guys will remember, in the last video I told you guys that we pulled all the spark plugs out, checked them, noticed all but two were covered in soot. So that tells me that it's running rich, which we were pretty sure that we already knew that. Me and my dad, we knew that coming into it, because of the fact that we ran a different carburetor that was running so rich that it would smoke its way all the way down the road, and anybody that was within probably about a half a mile would get choked out. Now, if you consider all the work that we've kind of done to it, not including us pulling the spark plugs, up until that point we really didn't know what was going on, but we did know that we had good vacuum-ish. We knew it was fluctuating between 19 and 17 inches of vacuum, and it's not supposed to do that. It's not like a real severe change in vacuum, it's kind of relatively slow. But one thing we did find out from our research is that it could possibly be that something to do with the ignition, or oddly enough I think the thing said something about spark plug gap being incorrect, like I said. So we took that information, we pulled the spark plugs, like I said, cleaned them out, re-gapped them, and the information that I could find on where they needed to be gapped correctly actually came from a for sale ad for the type of distributor that we have, which if nobody knows, or you're just now tuning in, we have a GM style HEI ignition system on this Jeep. What is recommended for those kind of ignition systems is a 45 to 55 thousandths plug gap. So taking that into consideration, we gapped all the spark plugs to about 50 thousandths. It's somewhere in that rough area, and we put everything back in, made sure they were tight, and it's kind of hard to do that when you have headers, because header flanges and all that good stuff. But in any case, we got them in, got them tightened up. We were going to check to make sure that it would run just fine with it, but here's the kicker. We have finally ran out of gas in the Jeep, and I think I told you guys that last week as well. So we really couldn't find out any more beyond that point. Well, Sunday rolled around, and I ended up going to town to fill up the truck like I normally do on Sundays, and I decided to take a couple of gas cans with me, not only to fill up my truck and gas for our lawnmowers and good stuff, but also so we could have some gas for the Jeep. So everything got 92 octane this week. Everything's going to run good. But in either case, we fill up the tank with 92 octane at about 5 gallons worth of 92, and we start cranking it over for took us about a minute for it to get up there finally, up to the carburetor. And wow, did that make a difference. I think having the higher octane on top of having a spark plug gap being correct now is the remedy to fixing that issue. Now, what we did find out on top of doing all that is there is still a vacuum leak somewhere, but the vacuum is not fluctuating at all. You put a gauge on it, it stays constant at 20 inches of vacuum, and that is what you want. And the only reason I say that there is still a vacuum leak is because we tried to cover the carburetor and it still doesn't want to really die. But keeping in mind that we knew we still had a vacuum leak, I did some looking around trying to figure out something, because I could still hear this sort of loud, noisy, not necessarily a hiss, but it was much louder than a hiss really. Took a stethoscope, tried to find where the sound was coming from, ended up finding that there was a hole on the backside of the choke for the vacuum. There's a vacuum operated part of the choke that on the older Jeeps it would have, there's this little coil that goes inside the manifold, and it uses the heat from that to be able to open up the choke as the engine gets warmer. Well, that's not hooked up, and it uses vacuum to pull the heat in, so it's really not doing much anything. It's just a vacuum leak right there. So we ended up finding a fitting that would fit in that hole, and we ended up just blocking it off. So right now it's not being used, and that still didn't fix the issue, and the carburetor's still not choking itself out when you cover it. So we're still thinking maybe there's another vacuum leak somewhere. But at this point, as I told my dad, all I care about is the fact that we are able to run the Jeep, the vacuum holds steady, which means now we can work on other things. So the one thing you guys will see here in just a minute, we ended up taking the Jeep out and taking it for a drive, and this thing runs really good, and especially on high octane fuel, which I'm sure helped significantly. I think the days of being able to run it on the cheaper gas is done and over with. Those days are gone. You might as well run it on good fuel, especially when you're trying to solve problems with it, because that way at least you have good fuel, and at least you don't have any detonation problems. But anyways, one of the issues that we've always had since we've been driving the Jeep is that when you try to get into power, it kind of stumbles and gives almost this sound like a cough. Well, I'm pretty sure that's the sound of it going lean because it has no fuel. And the reason it's going lean is because it has no fuel. Well, when you give it power, generally the accelerator pump is going to pump gasoline into the engine, which the accelerator pump works. It works fine. I checked it. I made sure just by opening and closing the throttle really fast, I did see gasoline shooting into it, so I know the accelerator pump is doing its job. That only leaves one other problem, and that is the power valve. Now, I know for a fact that the power valve that we have in this Jeep, in the carburetor, is a number 55 power valve. And for anybody that has no idea what I'm talking about, I know the old timers will know exactly what I'm talking about. A number 55 power valve basically means that it needs 5.5 inches of vacuum before it opens. And to give you a better understanding of what that means exactly is that if you have like a big cams generally tend to have a lot less vacuum. So for example, we'll just use a cam that when everything's running normally, you have 12 inches of vacuum at all times, okay? Well, what you do to find out what kind of power valve you need in a carbureted situation, you take the vacuum that you get at idle. If you have a manual transmission, you just leave it in idle. If you have an automatic transmission, you put it in drive, and you find out the vacuum you have at that particular level, and you take that reading and you divide it in half. So keeping that information in mind, you take the vacuum that we had stated, which was 12 inches of vacuum, divide it by 2, you get 6. Well, because that lands on an even number, you can't really, they don't make a number 60 power valve, so they only make them in half increments. So the best way to go is to go a half step down, which is a 5.5 inch vacuum power valve, so a number 55 power valve. Using that tidbit of information, as I said, the Jeep gives off 20 inches of vacuum, so 20 divided by 2, that's 10. Well, they don't make a 10, so you got to go down. So this weekend we plan on changing the power valve to see if this makes a difference and keeps it from running lean. And what I can tell you though is from total vacuum operation of the Jeep, I don't think the power valve that was in this, like I said, it's a number 55 power valve. It's the incorrect power valve for this particular vehicle. I don't think it's ever opened at all. So that would be the reason why we're having a lean condition when we try to drive it or when we try to get into heavy throttle. It's just not gonna have it. So with that said, guys, that kind of gives you guys an update on the Jeep. And as I said, there are things coming for the truck, and I'm working on some stuff with a particular business, and right now we're in the baby steps for it. And so I really don't have enough information to give you guys until everything fully develops. So when everything does and I have my questions answered, I will let you guys know what's going on with the truck and get you guys more updates on the truck. But until then, that's where we're at, and that's where we're at with the Jeep. And I'm hoping to have a video ready for you guys this weekend, which I will do a video of us installing the new power valve into the carburetor and us doing the first fire up and test drive just to see if it works out really well. So with that, guys, like I said, I really apologize that it's taking forever for all these parts to show up, and I also do apologize that I'm not covering some of this stuff as well as I'd like. A lot of this stuff is happening at the spur of the moment, and so naturally you just kind of have to go with it. And so I really never have a chance to grab the GoPro until it's already too late. So with that said though, I'm learning a lot from working on these carbureted engines. It's a lot of fun, and hopefully I can use that experience to do other things as well. Wrapping this video up, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Also, if this is your first time in the channel, please hit that subscribe button, because I know you guys want to see more of this Jeep, and I know you want to see more of the truck. So hit that subscribe button, because it means the world to me. Also, if you are going to subscribe, make sure that you hit that notification bell next to the subscribe button. You'll always want to hit that so you are always notified of when I post new videos, because nobody likes being left out in the dark. I don't like being left out in the dark, guys. It sucks. But with all that said, guys, hopefully you have a fantastic day and take it easy.